The sky above Calderas Prime was a bruised purple, mottled with streaks of ash and smog. The sun, a dim ember through layers of pollution, barely cast any warmth on the battered city below. Towering factories belched black smoke into the choked atmosphere, their skeletal frames silhouetted against the dying light. On the cracked pavement of a narrow alley, 9-year-old Lena Holden tugged at the sleeve of her older brother Jonas. Her small face was streaked with dirt, her bright eyes wide with wonder as she pointed upward. "Look, Jonas," she whispered. "The sky's still there. It didn't break." Jonas glanced up briefly, the faint glow of the polluted sun reflecting in his tired eyes. "Yeah, Lena, it's still there. But it's not the same." They were scavengers in a world that had forgotten children. Their parents long gone, lost to the mines or the endless wars. Yet for a moment, beneath the shroud of oppression, they had this small escape, watching the strange, broken sky. Suddenly, a distant rumble shattered the quiet. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Jonas stiffened. "They're coming." Lena's grip tightened. "Who?" "Drexari patrols." Jonas's voice was low, urgent. The alien overlords who had ruled Earth for 50 years with iron claws. His body had learned to read the subtle cues. The distant roar of hover engines, the faint stench of burnt ozone in the air. From the horizon, sleek patrol ships skimmed low, black and angular against the sky. Spotlights cut through the fog, searching. "Hide," Jonas hissed, pulling Lena behind a rusted dumpster. They crouched together, hearts pounding in rhythm with the heavy engines. Lena clutched her brother's hand so tightly it hurt. The patrol ship slowed, a beam scanning the alley. Then, a cold voice spoke through the loudspeaker in a harsh alien cadence. "Humans detected. Surrender immediately or be terminated." Jonas's mouth went dry. "We didn't do anything. We're just kids." The beam shifted. A Drexari officer stepped out, tall, armored, with eyes like molten gold. His multi-jointed limbs moved with inhuman grace as he advanced, weapon raised. "Move away," Jonas shouted, standing up protectively. But Lena, terrified, stumbled forward instead. She made a small step into the open, hands raised in a fragile peace. "Please," she whispered, "we're not the enemy." The officer's gaze flicked over her. For a moment, there was something almost like hesitation. Then the weapon fired. A flash of searing light. Lena's body disintegrated in an instant, vaporized where she stood. Jonas screamed, dropping to his knees amid the burning smell. "Lena!" The officer's voice came again, colder now, hostile, neutralized. "Next time, compliance is mandatory." As the patrol ship ascended, Jonas's sobs echoed through the alley. His hands trembled, still reaching for his sister who was no longer there. Far away, in a hidden resistance bunker beneath the ruins of New Chicago, Commander Ren Varric watched a grainy feed on a cracked holoscreen. The image of Lena's last moments, her terrified face moments before death, played on loop. Varric's jaw clenched. For years, the resistance had endured strikes, betrayals, and losses. But this was different. This was a symbol. "She was a child," Varric muttered. "A child we were supposed to protect." Behind him, his second-in-command, Sora Lynn, shook her head grimly. "The Drexari don't see us as people. Not anymore. We're pests to be eradicated." Varric turned, eyes burning with cold fire. "Then we make them remember what it means to be human." The message was sent out across encrypted channels. The image of Lena Holden became a rallying cry, an emblem of a people pushed too far. The hidden chamber beneath New Chicago hummed with a restless energy. Around the oval table sat leaders and representatives from across the scattered human worlds. The Mars Coalition, the Belt Miners Union, Europa's Outpost Council, and the forgotten settlements of Titan. Each face was hardened by years of war, loss, and distrust. Their eyes flicked warily at one another, memories of past betrayals unspoken but thick in the air. This was the first time in decades that such a meeting had been possible, and no one was sure it would last. At the head of the table, Commander Renveric stood tall, his sharp gaze cutting through the tension like a blade. His voice was steady, unwavering. "We have lived divided. We have survived scattered. But Lena Holden's death reminds us what's at stake. The Drexeri are not just oppressors. They are executioners." A murmur ran through the room, but it was quickly stifled by Minister Halka, Mars' hard-eyed representative. "Words are easy, Commander, but what you ask is unity among those who have fought each other as much as the enemy. We guard our resources fiercely. We cannot simply hand over control." Varric met her gaze without flinching. Survival is no longer guaranteed by isolation. If we do not act as one, we will fall piece by piece. Lena's death will be the last straw. A low growl of assent came from Europa's envoy, a wiry woman named Tessa Rin. "We've seen what happens when they decide we're expendable. It's not just Earth. They target every colony. Our children, our people, wiped out without mercy." Across the table, a burly miner from the asteroid belt, Jax Marin, slammed his fist down. "I've lost 3 brothers in strikes this year alone. Every day, they squeeze us tighter. We're breaking. We need to fight back." The room shifted, the weight of decades of grievance settling over them like dust. Varric raised his hand, commanding silence. "There is a chance to strike a blow that will shake the hegemony itself." Sora Lynn stepped forward, her pale eyes shining with resolve. "I intercepted a Drexeri transmission, Project Threnody. It's worse than anyone imagined. They plan to sterilize entire human populations within 2 generations. Erasure, not just conquest." Gasps and whispers spread like wildfire. The idea of complete extinction jolted every delegate. Varric's voice dropped, deadly serious. "This is genocide disguised as occupation. Our choice is clear. Act now or vanish." Just then, a comm channel buzzed in the corner. Varric glanced down at the holopad. A coded message from an unknown source. A voice crackled through the speakers, distorted but human. "I am Captain Ellis of the Drexeri fleet. I defect. I have intelligence that can turn the tide. Meet me at the coordinates I will send." The room froze. A Drexeri officer offering help. It seemed impossible. Suspicion hardened every face. Halka sneered. "A trap. There is no honor among the hegemony. We'll be slaughtered." Tessa shook her head. "Or it's the chance we've prayed for. If true, it could give us the edge to fight back." Varric's fingers clenched. "We cannot afford to ignore it. But we will be cautious." Jax leaned forward. "We don't have time for caution. The longer we wait, the more they tighten their grip." Varric met his gaze. "Then we act with precision and unity. The moment has come to be more than scattered sparks. We must become the flame." The delegates exchanged tense looks. Decades of broken alliances and lost lives weighed on their shoulders. But beneath the doubt, a flicker of hope stirred. Lena's image, burned into every screen and memory, was more than a symbol of loss. It was a call to arms. As the meeting ended, Varric stepped aside and activated a private channel. "Sora, prepare our hackers and scouts. If Captain Ellis is real, we need to verify. And if he's lying." Sora's eyes gleamed. "Then we'll find out soon enough. The Drexeri won't know what hit them." Outside the bunker, the city lay in uneasy silence. The people of Earth, of Mars, of the colonies were waking up from decades of fear. A reckoning was coming. And this time, humanity would be ready. In the cold, humming depths of the Resistance's hidden data vault, Sora Lynn's fingers flew over the holographic keyboard. Lines of alien code scrolled past her eyes as she burrowed deeper into the Drexeri's encrypted archives. Every system she breached tightened like a noose. Every firewall was a test of patience and skill. But Sora was relentless. Around her, a handful of other hackers, young, grizzled, and desperate, worked in synchronized silence. Their mission was clear: find something, anything, that could turn the tide against the Drexari. Sora's lips pressed into a thin line. The archives were a graveyard of secrets, forced labor records, weapon blueprints, genocide statistics. Then, buried beneath layers of data, she found it: Project Threnody. The name itself was haunting. Threnody. A lament, a dirge for the dead. Sora's eyes widened as she opened the file. Genetic manipulation, population control, mass sterilization programs targeting every human colony. This was no longer just war. It was systematic eradication. She swallowed hard, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Commander Varric needs to see this. Meanwhile, high above the ruins of Earth, Drexari patrol ships continued their ruthless sweep. To the human population, the enemy was omnipresent and unstoppable. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, ghosts infiltrating the machine. Sora's cyber attacks, coordinated with resistance sabotage teams, were crippling Drexari communication nodes and supply routes. Lights flickered on the megastructures. Ships lost navigation data mid-flight. Chaos rippled through the hegemony's ranks, unseen and deadly. Back in the command center, Varric's voice crackled over the comms. "Crow, report." "Crow," Sora's call sign, responded smoothly. "We've penetrated their networks deeper than ever. They don't realize their systems are infected." Varric exhaled, a brief moment of relief in the endless storm. "Keep pushing. If we can cripple their ability to coordinate, we give our fighters a real chance." But the Drexari were not blind. From the shadows, their intelligence operatives worked feverishly to hunt the intruders. Sora's team narrowly escaped detection more than once. One tense night, a pulse of energy slammed into the Resistance's server array. Alarms blared, red lights flashing in the darkened bunker. "Tracer detected," yelled a technician. Sora's fingers danced faster. Deploy countermeasures. For minutes, the digital battle raged. Firewalls shattering, data scrambling, programs fighting for control. Then, abruptly, the attack ceased. Sora leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. "They're scared." As dawn broke over the Resistance base, Varric gathered his lieutenants. "Project Threnody confirms what we feared. The Drexari plan not only to dominate but to wipe us out biologically." Tessa Rin clenched her fists. "They're trying to kill the future." Jax Marin's voice was grim. "Then we have no choice. We must stop them, by any means necessary." Varric nodded. "That means hitting them where it hurts, their command and control. If we can cut off the head, the body will fall." In a cramped cell on a Drexari cruiser, Captain Elis stared at a flickering holofeed of human faces, the Resistance leaders. His decision to defect had cost him everything: rank, trust, and safety. But the cold machinery of the hegemony left no room for doubt. "Tomorrow, the coordinates will open a path," he whispered to himself. "They deserve a chance. Lena deserved justice." The cramped corridors of the abandoned mining colony on Mars echoed with muffled footsteps and whispered commands. In the shadows, a group of children, no older than 12 or 13, huddled around a battered table cluttered with scavenged electronics and crude explosives. Matteo Driggs, his face smudged with dirt and streaks of soot, adjusted the detonator with trembling fingers. His sharp eyes glimmered with fierce determination far beyond his years. "Are you sure it'll work?" asked Lyra, a girl with a scar running down her cheek. Matteo nodded. "It has to. Every Drexari patrol that roams here is a chain around our necks. They think they can crush us with fear, but fear can be broken." Nearby, Jonas Halden watched quietly, his broad frame tense as he surveyed the young fighters. Since Lena's death, he'd taken it upon himself to mentor those who had lost everything. The children were the future of the rebellion, and they were angry. "You don't have to do this alone," Jonas said softly. We'll fight with you. Matteo met his gaze with steady resolve. I don't want to be a soldier, but they took everything from us. From all of us. Jonas swallowed the lump in his throat. He saw Lena's fierce spirit in Matteo's eyes, the same spark that refused to die. That night, as red dust swirled across the Martian plains, the small band crept toward a Drexeri hover train lumbering through the outskirts of the colony. Guards lounged, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Matteo's hand hovered over the detonator. On my mark. The tension was unbearable. A single wrong move would mean death, not just for them, but for the rebellion's fragile hopes. Now, Matteo whispered fiercely, pressing the button. A thunderous explosion ripped through the silence. The hover train shuddered, twisted metal, and flame licking the air as the explosion tore through the engine compartment. Guards screamed and scrambled in panic, but the damage was done. From the shadows, cheers erupted. The attack spread like wildfire through the human settlements. Terra's Fang, they called him, the boy who dared strike back. But the Drexeri responded with brutal force. Within hours, patrols swept through the colonies with terrifying efficiency. Entire neighborhoods were razed, curfews tightened. Lyra returned to the hidden camp, her eyes wide with fear. They'd burned the eastern sector. Hundreds gone. Jonas clenched his fists. They want us broken. We won't let that happen. In the dim light, the children gathered, their youthful faces hardened by loss. We fight not just for revenge, Matteo said, voice ringing clear. We fight for a future where no child dies in silence. Word of Terra's Fang spread beyond Mars. Across the belt, Europa, and Earth's battered cities, young fighters began rising up. They fashioned weapons from scraps, organized ambushes, and sent messages of defiance. Sora Lynn intercepted a Drexeri broadcast, furious and desperate. The aliens denounced the child insurgents as terrorists to be eliminated without mercy, but the broadcast only fueled human determination. Varric met with his council. The children are rising. They are not pawns. They are warriors in their own right. Tesserin added, we must protect them, train them, turn their fury into strength. Back on Mars, Matteo sat with Jonas beneath a shattered dome, the stars barely visible through the thick haze. Do you think Lena would be proud? Matteo asked quietly. Jonas looked at the boy, his eyes reflecting a fierce hope. She would fight beside you. Matteo smiled faintly, a fragile light breaking through the darkness. They were no longer just survivors. They were a movement, a rising storm that would not be quelled. The red dust hung thick in the air, like a suffocating shroud, as Drexeri warships descended on the Martian colonies. The once bustling settlements were now targets of brutal retribution. Jonas Halden stood atop a scorched ridge, his eyes narrowed against the choking smoke. Flames devoured the horizon. Homes, markets, entire districts reduced to ash and ruin. The screams of the innocent echoed faintly through comms, a haunting symphony of destruction. Matteo Driggs crouched beside him, hands clenched tight around a battered rifle. His youthful face was streaked with soot and tears, hardened beyond his years. They want to burn us out. Make us vanish. Jonas's voice was grim. Then we make sure they remember that every ember can start a wildfire. The Drexeri's assault was swift and merciless. Orbital bombardments pulverized infrastructure, while ground troops executed ruthless sweeps through the ruins. Martian resistance fighters were scattered and overwhelmed. Commander Renveric, coordinating from the underground command center, ordered a desperate counterstrike, a high-risk mission to destroy the Drexeri fortress controlling the siege. Tessa, your team leads the assault, Varric instructed over the comlink. This is our chance to break their hold. Failure means death for many, but success could turn the tide. Understood, Tessa replied, her voice steel. We'll give them hell. Under the crimson sky, Tessa's squad advanced through shattered streets and cratered ruins. Explosions blossomed like deadly flowers, shaking the ground beneath their feet. As they reached the fortress's outer defenses, a hail of plasma fire erupted. Tessa ducked behind a rusted hull, shouting commands. "Suppress their fire. Cover our flank." Matteo, fighting alongside the militia, felt his heart hammering. Every shot he fired was a promise to Lena, to his fallen friends, to the countless innocents lost. Suddenly, an explosion threw him off his feet. Pain seared through his side. He grimaced but forced himself up. "I'm not done yet." Inside the fortress, Drexari officers coordinated their brutal defense, confident the humans would crumble beneath their superior firepower. But the resistance was no longer the frightened masses they had once crushed so easily. The battle raged hour after hour. Losses mounted. Tessa's squad was pinned down, surrounded by overwhelming forces. Jonas fought desperately to reach them, cutting through enemy lines with ferocity born of grief and rage. His voice cracked over the comms. "Hold on. Reinforcements are coming." But as the resistance pushed forward, a deadly ambush awaited. Drexari reinforcements poured in from underground tunnels, cutting off escape routes. Caught in the trap, the resistance fighters faced annihilation. Varric's voice was tense in Jonas's ear. "Fall back. Regroup at Delta Point." "Not without them," Jonas growled. "We can't leave anyone behind." The firefight turned into a desperate scramble. Smoke and fire twisted around them as comrades fell one by one. Finally, the survivors broke through the encirclement, battered but alive. The fortress was damaged, but the price had been devastating. Dozens of fighters lost, including some of the youngest among them. Back at the command center, Varric stared at the casualty reports, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles whitened. "We've dealt them a blow," he said quietly, "but at a terrible cost." Soralin's face was grim. "They'll retaliate harder." Varric nodded. "We have to be ready." In the aftermath, the Martian colonies mourned their dead beneath skies still burning with the fires of war. Mothers wept for lost children. Survivors swore vengeance. Matteo lay in a makeshift infirmary, his wounds bandaged but his spirit unbroken. Jonas sat by his side, eyes heavy with exhaustion and resolve. "They tried to break us," Jonas whispered, "but they only made us stronger." Matteo smiled faintly. "Then let them come. We'll be waiting." The night was thick with silence, too thick, like the world was holding its breath. Deep beneath the scared surface of Europa's icy moon, in a cavern carved by ancient tides, a small group of resistance operatives gathered around a flickering holographic map. Commander Renvaric's eyes scanned the data, reflecting the pale blue light as tension coiled in the room. The recent defeat on Mars had sent ripples through the entire human network. Morale was fragile, and trust even more so. "We can't let the Drexari tighten their grip," Varric said quietly, his voice a blade of calm resolve. "Our victories have come at great cost, but their arrogance blinds them. They underestimate what we're capable of." Beside him, Soralin adjusted her tactical interface, already running simulations. "Our hackers have located a new vulnerability in their communications grid, near the Hegemony's command station on Titan. If we exploit it, we can disrupt their coordination across multiple sectors." A murmur ran through the group. Titan, the giant moon of Saturn, a frozen fortress, and a nerve center for the Drexari's military operations. It was considered untouchable. "Risky," muttered Jax Marin, rubbing the scars on his knuckles. "If they catch us, it's all over." Varric's gaze hardened. "It's a risk we have to take. We can't fight their might head-on. We strike from the shadows. Silence is our greatest weapon now." As preparations moved forward, word of the planned mission spread quietly among human outposts. The whispered code name, Operation Whisperfire. Among the operatives was Lena's older brother, Jonas Halden. He carried the weight of his sister's death like a living flame inside him. Burning grief sharpened into relentless purpose. Tonight, he would walk the razor's edge between hope and oblivion. The stolen Drexari shuttle glided silently through Titan's atmosphere, cloaked beneath a veil of electromagnetic interference. Inside, the team sat in tense silence, each member focusing on their role. Sora's fingers danced over her console, hacking into the moon's vast network. Almost there. Now. Outside, the frozen plains of Titan stretched endlessly, icy, desolate, and deadly. The shuttle touched down with a whisper, and the team slipped into the shadows. Their movements were ghost-like, blending with the cold and darkness. Inside the command station, alarms blared suddenly. An intrusion detected. Drexari guards scrambled, but the resistance operatives were already deep within the system's core, planting viruses and scrambling communication arrays. Jonas kept watch, rifle ready, heart pounding as footsteps approached from around the corner. "Hold steady," he whispered. A guard passed by without noticing, and Jonas exhaled slowly, relief washing over him like a tide. Sora's voice crackled through their comlink. "Upload complete. Communications are scrambled. We've blinded the hegemony. For now." The team raced back to the shuttle as chaos erupted behind them. Plasma fire streaked through the corridors, and the ground trembled with the roar of incoming reinforcements. Jax covered their retreat with fierce determination, holding off waves of Drexari soldiers. As the shuttle lifted off, Titan's defenses flared in futile response. The mission was a success, but the war was far from over. Back in the safety of the Resistance's command hub, Varric studied the flickering status screens. The impact of Operation Whisperfire was already rippling through enemy ranks. "This will give our allies time to regroup," Varric said, voice steady but tired. Sora nodded. "It's a small victory, but every ripple counts." The battered remnants of the human fleet gathered beyond the asteroid belt, a ragtag armada of old freighters, commandeered warships, and stolen Drexari vessels. The air hung heavy with anticipation and unspoken fears. Commander Ren Varric stood on the command bridge of the Resolute, the flagship of the Resistance fleet. His eyes, steely and sharp, scanned the starfield before him. This was it, the moment when whispered defiance turned into open rebellion. "Prepare all systems for engagement," Varric ordered. His voice was calm, but beneath it thrummed the electric charge of impending battle. "Our target, the Drexari dreadnought Imperator Vex. Its destruction will cripple their command capabilities in this sector." The room erupted with coordinated activity. Pilots checked their vessels. Engineers worked feverishly to maximize shield outputs. Every soldier braced for what could be their final fight. Across the void, the Imperator Vex loomed like a dark sentinel, its massive hull bristling with weaponry. The Drexari High Command had dismissed human resistance as a nuisance, until now. The silence shattered as Varric's fleet surged forward, engines burning bright against the black canvas of space. Plasma bolts streaked across the distance, lighting up the void with deadly precision. Jonas Halden piloted a nimble fighter, weaving through volleys of enemy fire. His mind flashed with memories of Lena. Her laughter, her fight, her death. This battle was for her, and for every lost soul under the hegemony's boot. "Stay sharp," Varric's voice crackled over comms. "Hit their weak points, and don't give them an inch." The initial clash was brutal. Drexari fighters swarmed like angry hornets, but the humans fought with desperate fury. Explosions rippled through space as ships tore each other apart in blazing death spirals. Sora Lin's hacking team launched a simultaneous cyber attack, infiltrating the Imperator Vex's systems. Digital sabotage crippled shields and jammed weapon targeting, turning the dreadnought vulnerable. Varric seized the moment. "Fire all torpedoes." Missiles streaked through space, striking the Imperator Vex with shuddering impacts. The dreadnought convulsed, hull plating rupturing under the barrage. Inside the Imperator Vex, chaos reigned. Drexari commanders barked orders as fires spread and systems failed. Captain Ellis, the defector, moved swiftly through the corridors, guiding human operatives embedded in the ship's heart. He paused at a control panel, his face grim. "This ship falls, The hegemony's hold in this sector crumbles. Back in the fray, Jonas found himself locked in a deadly duel with a Drexari ace pilot. The two fighters danced a lethal ballet amid the stars, their weapons flashing in deadly arcs. Jonas dodged a plasma blast, retaliating with precision. The alien pilots snarled, driving their craft into a sharp dive. With a surge of adrenaline, Jonas unleashed a final burst of fire. The enemy fighter erupted in flames, spiraling into the void. "Target down," Jonas reported, breathing hard. As the Imperator Vex began to break apart, Varric's fleet pushed the advantage. The tide had turned. But victory came with a cost. The Resolute shook violently. An unseen missile had breached its defenses. "Damage report," Varric shouted. Sparks flew across the bridge. "Hull breach in Section 7. We're losing power." Jonas gritted his teeth. "We can't hold much longer." Varric's voice was steady. "Prepare for evacuation if necessary. This fight is far from over, but today we show them humanity will not be broken." As alarms blared, the Imperator Vex exploded in a brilliant supernova of fire and metal. The shockwave rocked the battlefield, and Drexari ships began a chaotic retreat. Cheers erupted across the human fleet, a rare moment of hope in a long war. The shattered remnants of the Drexari fleet fled like shadows chased by light, their dominance broken but not extinguished. Across the silent void, the human resistance's battered armada limped forward, battered but unbowed. Commander Renveric stood on the bridge of the Resolute, gazing into the star-speckled abyss with a rare faint smile. The destruction of the Imperator Vex had sent shockwaves through the hegemony, igniting sparks of rebellion across their occupied worlds. The war was far from over, but for the first time in decades, humanity saw a glimmer of hope. "Status report," Varric ordered. Sora Lynn's fingers danced over the console. "Damage is critical but manageable. Shields are stabilizing. Communications are restored." Jonas Halden approached, his face weary yet fierce. "The militia's holding their ground. Terra's Fang is rallying the children and civilians alike. They're ready to fight for every inch." Varric nodded. "Good. This is our moment, to turn whispers into roars, shadows into light." On Mars, Matteo Driggs stood among the ruins of a once thriving settlement, now a battlefield scarred by fire and loss. He looked out at the horizon, where the first pale light of dawn began to pierce the blood-red sky. Around him, the children of the rebellion prepared to rebuild, to resist, to reclaim what had been stolen. Matteo's voice was steady as he addressed the gathered fighters. "We have survived their terror. We have suffered. But we will never surrender. This dawn is ours." Meanwhile, deep in a secret resistance outpost on Earth, Sora Lynn reviewed transmissions flooding in from liberated colonies across the solar system. The human spirit was rising. Against impossible odds, they were fighting back. Her thoughts turned to Lena, to the child whose death had sparked this reckoning. "We carry her memory," Sora whispered, and the promise that no sacrifice was in vain. But the hegemony was not finished. Far from the shattered battlefield, a new Drexari armada stirred, more ruthless and determined than ever. The war was entering its most perilous phase. Varric's voice hardened as he addressed his commanders. "The reckoning has begun, but the price will be high. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of all humanity." Tessa Rin's eyes burned with fierce resolve. "Then let them come. We are ready." In the quiet moments before the storm, Jonas stood at the edge of a viewing platform, staring out at the stars. He thought of Lena, of Matteo, of every friend lost, and every victory won. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but one truth remained clear. Humanity would endure, and in the darkest reaches of the void, a new dawn was rising.